In this video, I'm gonna show you how I made this cute little hat for a cat or a small pet, whatever you have. When I made this, Wrigley was sitting on my lap directly in front of me, so I was able to kind of play around with size and wing it, and I did not write down anything that I did, but I've gone back and looked at it, and I'm pretty sure I know what I did. I think I've also made some mistakes along the way, but that's okay because it's just a cat hat, and if it happens again, I'll show you how I just keep working through it. And then if you don't want to work through it, then you can just undo it. Like I did the first time I tried to film this hat. I'm gonna reuse this yarn. It's a mess, but hopefully it won't cause me any problems. I used this 4.5mm hook. I used scissors at some point too. When I first tried to redo the hat, I thought the hat was a little bit too big, which I think it's actually fine, but just take note, Wrigley is a very big cat, but since it's soft, I kind of could like squish it around his head and adjust it. I also made this little tie to keep it on, so that's helpful too. If you want to make this, you might want to see how I do it and then kind of play around with ways to make it smaller if you have a smaller pet, or bigger if you have a bigger pet. I used worsted weight yarn, I forget if I said that, and this flower was left over from another project, but it's DK weight yarn. I just did a terrible job sewing that in there, so just don't look at it. Okay, let's get started making this cute little bucket hat. Hopping in here quickly to correct a few things. I am working with double crochets and you will see me do many chain 2s, but technically I should be chaining 3. So you can either copy me or do the right way. Doesn't really matter. It all works out in the end. Also, you will hear me say slip knot a lot of times, but I mean slip stitch. So please just ignore that. I'm sure there are other mistakes, but these are 2 big things I wanted to point out. Okay, we start with a magic circle. I love working with magic circles. You could probably do one of the other variations with chains if you don't like them, but I love them. So I have my magic circle and I'm gonna do 10 double crochets into the magic circle. But first, I'm gonna chain 2 to add some height. Okay, and then double crochet 1, 2, 10. So now I have my 10 double crochets into the magic circle plus my chain 2. Sometimes I count my chain 2. I don't know if it's supposed to be chain 2 or chain 3, but sometimes I count it as the first stitch, but I don't know if I did that in the original hat, but we're not doing that now. So then grab the tail and pull it tight. Like it should be, it's on the other side. Hold on. Okay, pull it tight. And now we want to close the circle. We're gonna do a slip knot into that first stitch. Now we're ready to start the next row. We're gonna chain 2, just like before, and then we're gonna double crochet into that first stitch. And then we're gonna do a second double crochet into that same stitch. All right, so we're gonna do 2 double crochets into each stitch around. So I'll show you one more time and then I'm gonna pause the camera. So double crochet into the next stitch once. Double crochet into the next stitch twice. Great, now I'm gonna keep doing that all the way around. Here comes the train. I'll meet you at, I'm gonna pause the camera, I'll meet you at the end. Now we've made it to the last double crochet. There's this here too, but that is the slip knot that we made. So again, just ignore that if you're following how I did it. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet. Great. Now just like before, we're gonna slip stitch into that, into that first stitch to close the circle. We're starting to get the top of the hat. Got a few more rows to go. So you should have 20 double crochets because we started with 10. Now we are going to do the third round. So chain 2, like I just did. And then you're going to double crochet once again into that first stitch. Now, instead of doing 2, we're going to move into the next stitch and do 2 double crochets into this stitch. And that's the pattern we're going to follow. 2 double crochets into every second stitch. So here's 1 double crochet, and then I do 2 into the next one. 1, 2. Okay, I'm gonna pause the camera again, but do that 1, 2 pattern all the way around, and I'll see you at the other side. Once again, we have the 2 stitches left, and then that was a slip stitch. I'm gonna ignore that. So 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochets into this stitch. And then just like before, I'm gonna slip stitch into that first stitch. We got another circle. So you can see here we have our first 3 circles, and then we got 1 more before we start working down the side. Oh my gosh, this yarn is such a mess. I don't know why I just didn't finish rolling this. That's a problem for later, okay? Start the same way, chain 2, and then we're gonna do 1 double crochet into that first stitch. And then this pattern is going to be 2 double crochets into every third stitch. So we just did 1, we're gonna move to the next stitch, we're gonna do 1 double crochet. Of course, ignore the chain. And then 2 double crochets into the next stitch. And then keep doing this all the way around. And then I'm gonna pause the camera again. All right, we're back. We have 3 stitches left, and that slip knot we're ignoring. So 1 double crochet into that first one, another double crochet into the second one, and then 2 double crochets into that last one. Slip stitch into that first double crochet to close the circle. One thing I was curious about, if you want to make a smaller hat, was just skipping the last row right here. That would have made the top a little bit smaller, but you gotta kind of play around with it with your pet and see what makes sense for them. But just putting that out there in case anyone wants to try that. We have the top of our hat now. So next we need to start working down the side of the hat. To do that, we're gonna double crochet only into the back loop, and that will kind of like turn it downwards. I'll show you. Don't worry. So once again, chain 2. Kind of hard to see on the first one, so I'm just gonna do 1, and then show you. It's a little bit easier once I get away from that chain. So we have this V stitch. It doesn't look, it's not my best stitch. It's okay. There's 2 little strands right here, and we usually go under both of them. But now we are gonna split them and just go through the back stitch like that. So double crochet through that back stitch only. And this is what will start turning the side down. All right, 1 into each. I'll see you at the other side. 2 stitches left. So I'm going to double crochet into the back stitch. Here comes the train. And then 1 more time. Now to close it up, we're gonna slip stitch into that first stitch again. Now you can see how, since we only went into that back stitch, it's starting to curl down. For the next 2 rows, 1, 2, it's gonna be a double crochet into every single stitch. So I did 1 double crochet into that first stitch, 1 double crochet into the next stitch, There's so much cat hair getting woven into this already. And yeah, keep just doing that all the way around. I do this for 2 full rounds. You can do it for more or less. It kind of just depends on how tall you want your hat to be, but pretty straightforward. Once I get all the way around, I'm gonna slip stitch into that first stitch, chain 2, and just repeat it. So I'll come back after I finish the next 2 rounds. I said I was gonna work 2 rounds, but I lied. I'm finishing that same round I was just working on. But I wanted to let you know, I figured out my yarn problem and I didn't even realize that I had 2, whatever you wanna call these, wads, balls of yarn. So I'm gonna have to reconnect those later probably. But yeah, just ignore that. So we made it all around. There's that slip stitch from before. I'm gonna slip stitch into that first stitch to close the round. Chain 2, and then double crochet into that same first stitch, and then keep working all the way around. Now I am finishing that second row of double crochets. So I finished that, and I'm gonna slip stitch into that first stitch. We're making good progress. So now we've done these first 3 rows that go down the side. Now the next row is probably the trickiest part of the hat, is the ear holes. We do this by crochet, the double crochet is normal, and then we stop and make a chain that will leave that gap, and then we connect it back here. So I'll walk you through that. The amount of stitches you chain and stitches you skip will depend on how big you want to make your ear holes. So you might play around with how long this is and how short the front is, but I'll show you how I did it, or I think I did it right now. Okay, like I mentioned, when I made this hat, there were some mess ups. I usually mess up along the side of the hat. I think what happens is I work extra stitches into the slip stitches or something, but I'm pretty sure there should be 40 double crochets around the side of each row. This one, by the time we get to the ear holes, has 43. So instead of undoing all my work, I just kind of worked with it. The amount of stitches I do here and for the ear holes on this hat will be a little different than this hat, because it has to equal 43 because I have 43 stitches. So if you mess up, just keep moving forward. It's fine. I did 15 around the back, and then you'll see when we do our chain, chained 14 and skipped 7. I did 14 around the front, and then the next ear hole was the same thing. I skipped 7 stitches and chained 14. I'll still stick with the 7 stitches for the ear holes because that worked well, but I'm gonna do the front and the back the same. They're gonna be each have 13. This will make more sense when I start doing it. I'm gonna chain 2, and then I'm going to do 13 double crochets into each stitch. So it's 1, 2, 13. All right, so we have our 13 double crochets into each stitch. Now, just like the other hat, I'm gonna chain 14, and we're gonna skip over the next 7 stitches to kind of create that gap for the ear. 1, 2, 3, 14. Now we're gonna skip 7 stitches. So we just worked into this stitch. You can see it's coming out of there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, now we're gonna double crochet into that 8th stitch. So leave 7 empty, and then double crochet into that 8th stitch. This is kind of tricky, it kind of turns, but great. So now we need to do the 13 along the front, and I just did the first one, so this will be the second. Ooh. $13. All right, now we do the second ear hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you see these are the 7 stitches we're going to be skipping. Then we'll work a slip knot right into that first stitch to end the round, similar to before. All right, I'm gonna chain 14. 1, 2, 14. Slip knot into that first stitch. Okay, I don't know how confident I am about this, but I'm pretty sure that the next round is gonna be all single crochet, so not the double crochet. And we need to start flipping the hat out. So to do that, we're gonna do exact opposite what we did up here. So working into the back loop, now we work into the front loop, and this will make it come this way. Let me show you how I do that. So chain 1, and I'm just gonna do the first one, but we're gonna work a single crochet into the front of each stitch. So here is the V. Before we were working through the center and just the back. Now we're just gonna be working through the front. So this flips the brim of the hat out. And instead of double crochets, this round is single crochets. All right, now we've got to our chain. We're gonna work a single crochet into each chain, all 14. All right, once I get to that last chain, sometimes it gets super small, but we didn't do a slip stitch there, so I know that's still a chain. There we go. All right, now we need to go into single crochet into the front loop of each stitch around the front. All right, now we're back at the next ear hole, the next chain from the ear hole. We're gonna single crochet into each chain. 2. This is a little bit of a mess because I had to switch the yarn. Sorry, a little bit chaotic, but slip stitch into your first stitch, just like before, to close off the rounds. Wow, look at our little hat coming together. Now we have that first little edge that kind of flips out the brim of the hat, and now we need to make it the rest of the flappy brim. Rows 10, 11, and 12 are all the same thing. Double crochet into the first 2 stitches and then 2 double crochets into the third. You could keep going if you want a longer brim. I didn't want it to get too heavy though, so that's as far as I went. To get the flappy part, we go back to double crochets. So I'm gonna chain 2. I don't know if I should be chaining 3, but whatever. Double crochet into that same first stitch. Double crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 double crochets into the third stitch. And I just repeat this all the way around like before. I'm gonna stop filming, but just keep that pattern of 2 double crochets into every third stitch. Now I need to do 2 double crochets. I am just gonna move that on to the next round. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't check my work. I don't know if I messed up, so you might not land at the same place as me, but wherever you do finish, I'm gonna slip stitch to finish that round, and then chain 2 and just continue where I left off. So I'm gonna do 2 double crochets into that first stitch to finish off the pattern, and we're just gonna keep doing it. So 1 double crochet into the first stitch, another double crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 double crochets into the third stitch. I don't know if this is the right way to do it, like I should have had my math better planned out, but that's how I did it. All right, you get it. I'm gonna pause the camera and come back when I'm finished. I just sped through that. My hand feels like it's about to break off. I'm sure I did a bunch of mistakes, but that's okay. Just keep working through it. but I did my 3 rounds of the brim. And then finishing up the 3rd one right now, and then slip stitch into that 1st stitch to close it up, and then we're done. And then I need to cut the yarn. I'll weave that in later. I don't want to do it right now. My hands hurt. But we have our little hat. Here is the other hat for comparison. Pretty similar. It's hard to tell from this angle, but I swear they are. Hello, it's me from the future. By the end of filming the last video, I was so tired and hungry. I just made it so complicated on how to attach this little tie. I'm gonna do it again. Unfortunately, I don't know how long this chain is, but you're gonna wanna make your chain long enough to go through the back side of your hat and tie around your cat or your pet's chin. So however long that is, play around with it. Here's the hat I made. And this is a chain from a scrap. Now it is way too short for what I just described, but it's what I'm gonna use to show you how I add in the safety tie, the neck tie, I don't know what you wanna call it. So I like adding the chain to the back of the hat, and to find the back of the hat, you'll find that there's like a seam from where we did all the chains and slip stitches. You can keep that in mind if you want to add something to the front of the hat, like my flower. But what I do is I find the back of the hat, and at the ear hole, I go to the 1st stitch, which is, I think this is technically our chain 2. And I'm gonna go in between. And then over to the other ear hole, we want to find that same spot where the ear hole starts and you have their 1st stitch. And I pull it through that. And then tuck it just like loosely into the ear hole. Same thing over here, just pull it through down into the ear hole. So now it has this little strap that goes along the back, and if it's longer, I could tie it around my cat's or pet's chin. This part's not fully necessary, but it's helpful if the hat keeps falling off. That's pretty much it. That's how I made this cute little hat. You can, like I said, this flower was from a different project and I just threw it on. You can add a flower or any kind of design. I don't know, maybe a little like band around the front would be cute too. If you want to see how I made this flower, I will do that in another video. And if you end up making this hat, please tag me on social media because I would love to see it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.